We have 6 people who are going to speak today, and we have a Q&A session in the end. So please engage in the Q&A session, and also just write in the chat if there's anything also along the way during the webinar. First, we'll hear from Maria Grazia Zucchini about the ERA Fabric project. Important starters here. And then we'll hear from Magnus Joem about twin transitions in from Norway's mission to the EU. And then we have our four presentations. The first from Boris Bulatovic. We have one from Anastasia Panovi, Saad Ahmed, and Bart Brink. We're all here in this room right now. So first of all, I'd like to leave the floor to you, Maria Grazia, to introduce the Fabric project.
Hello to everybody. My name is Maria Grazia Zucchini, and I am the coordinator of the ERA Fabric project that gives opportunities today to organize and this relevant webinar. Just a few words to introduce this project. It is a pilot project launched at the beginning of 2023, supported by the European Commission under the Horizon Europe program. It involves 11 partners distributed across 9 European countries and coordinated by HARTER. The main goal of this project is to investigate and to test the concept of ERA hubs. That means a hub of European research area, conceived as an interactive space of knowledge ecosystems that promotes cross-border cooperation with an open and inclusive approach. With the overall goal of favoring the exploitation of research results, the transfer of knowledge and technologies, the circulation of talents, the development of careers, and the improvement of the capabilities of the research actors and businesses. Of course, these goals can be achieved only with a proper support from the policy and the proper integration of action carried out not only at regional but also at national and interregional level. So we will have tried to investigate all these aspects within our projects. And we had to keep in mind that one of the key targets of the ERA, the European Research Area, is to prioritize investments and reforms in research and innovation towards the green and digital transition. So we decided to focus on this aspect that is essential in our current international scenario. That's why we started with an exchange of opinions, of comments among partners, not only partners, but also their stakeholders. Last May, we arranged an interregional workshops, an interactive workshop with parallel sessions involving about 80 stakeholders from the 9 countries participating in the projects. And during these workshops, we collected some input about identifying challenges and opportunities for improvement in this topic. We discussed possible actionable policies to strengthen the research initiatives, and we tried to identify some best practice, but also some new challenges to be approached. From the exit of these workshops, we identified some elements that deserve to be further analyzed, and we decided to arrange this webinar in order to go in depth of some important aspects to be investigated with the contribution of relevant European European experts. So I would like, first of all, to thank all our speakers for their availability to provide their inputs, their ideas, and to offer everybody the opportunity to get some insight in these aspects. Thank you and good work.
Thank you, Maria Grazia, for a nice introduction to the project and why we have come here as well. So next up, I'd like to leave the floor to Magnus.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the introduction, Dag Håkon. It's my pleasure to take part in today's webinar on the EU's twin transitions and give some remarks on how I see the green and digital transformations and their kind of interconnections. My name is Magnus Jorem, and I work as Counselor for ICT Policy at the Mission of Norway to the EU. And in this role, which I should say I only began 1 month ago, I cover the field of digitalization and digital regulation, areas where a lot is going on in the European Union, both in terms of legal acts like the EU AI Act, which was passed recently, the Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act, and a number of other upcoming pieces of legislation, but also in terms of EU-wide initiatives like the Digital Decade that we are in the middle of at present, with a variety of different policy targets connected to skills, infrastructure, and more. The green transition and digitalization are closely connected. On the one hand, digitalization is seen as essential to most segments of society and industry, but it plays a particularly important role in reaching the EU's targets of CO2 emissions reductions and other environmental policy objectives. The use of Internet of Things data, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence can be used to optimize agriculture, industry, energy consumption in buildings, traffic, logistics, and other things in our society with a heavy carbon footprint. As the Commission phrased it when presenting its digital strategy, Shaping Europe's Digital Future, back in the year 2020, the digital component will be key in reaching the ambitions of the European Green Deal and the Sustainable Development Goals. As powerful enablers for the sustainability transition, digital solutions can advance the circular economy, support the decarbonization of all sectors, and reduce the environmental and social footprint of products placed on the EU market. At the same time, advanced digital technologies, as you probably all are aware, themselves require a lot of energy. Computing power is expensive, and today the use of digital technologies takes around 8 to 10% of global energy. It also accounts for about 2 to 4% of climate gas emissions, depending on how you calculate it. Given the rapid technological advances in AI and computing, and rapid uptake of these among companies and consumers, this share looks likely to increase. The EU Green Deal aims for carbon neutrality by 2050, setting ambitious targets for industries to decarbonize. This includes reducing emissions, investing in renewable energy, and developing circular economies. For Norway, which is already a global leader in hydroelectric power, green shipping, and hydrogen, this can open a number of opportunities. Indeed, the twin transitions present some very concrete possibilities for deeper cooperation between the EU and Norway in research, innovation, and business. Through programs like Horizon Europe, which was just mentioned, and Digital Europe, both of which Norway is part, Norway can collaborate with EU partners on developing cutting-edge technologies in clean energy, digital solutions, and sustainable industrial processes. And this integration fosters innovation ecosystems that can benefit Norway and EU industries and their university and research sectors. So I encourage the participants in today's webinar to keep taking a close look at both Horizon Europe and the Digital Europe program. There may be calls for tenders or applications of relevance to you and your institution or company. And I should say for the Norwegians in the audience, for both programs, there are government agencies working on our participation. These include the Research Council of Norway, the Norwegian Digitalization Agency, Innovation Norway, and the Directorate for Higher Education and Skills, HKD. And you can take a look at the websites of the two programs online, but also you can reach out to national key contact points in these agencies, and also feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Magnus, for a nice introduction also to the EU point of view, and also the opportunities to engage. That's very great. I think we are then set for our first presentation today. That is from Boris Bulatovic from the Steinbeis School of Sustainable Innovation and Transformation. So please, Boris.
Hello, everyone. I hope my presentation can be seen and I can be heard and a bit seen. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm really excited to first time publicly talk about this specific twin transition, because we are actually looking into it for a long time, applied for some fundings, even got some fundings. But I have to say, I'm glad that it's going really mainstream. I will just try to use this 10, 12 minutes to a little bit promote what we do, and a bit to demystify some of the concepts, because what I realize and what we realize, none of us are experts in all the things. And what we realize is that basically, in order that we solve these big challenges of transition and of decarbonization, we have to work together. So we have also to find a common language, and this common language has to be a bit simplified and a bit really clear. So that would be the purpose for my presentation today. Just a few words about Steinbeis School of Sustainable Innovation and Transformation. We are part of a larger setup of Steinbeis University and also part of a Steinbeis Foundation. And basically what we are dealing with, we are not a traditional educational institution or an academic institution. We are somewhere in between, dealing with actually connecting knowledge workers, such as, I guess, a lot of you guys, and industry. So the Steinbeis School of Sustainable Innovation and Transformation is a new school. And as you can see, we are using the word transformation rather than transition, but it comes from transition. And this is also something I would like to later on point out in my presentation. Already I told you a bit about the goal. Basically is, of course, not to go too general, but to tell you an exciting story of sustainable finance regulation in a very simple and simplified way, and show how we are actually seeing necessity of digital and green. That's our another way to call it twin transition, digital and green, to actually really enable the change. In between, I just want to say that we also used to work in our own Steinbeis setup, first on a master program. First, we looked into the basically general idea of the sustainability. And then with these new regulations that are coming up in terms of sustainable finance, we realize, okay, that's not enough. Telling a story about sustainability and kind of doing the work for companies is not what we should do. We should really look into the operationalization, because also EU agenda is coming there. I will tell you more about this at the later points. And basically, it's a conference about twin transition, so I won't go deeper into this point, but twin transition for us is a strategy. It's in a way an idea and awareness that it's necessary to combine digital innovation and sustainability. And that, for example, when we work with companies, they should not see, as many times they do, they shouldn't see this as two separate departments, two separate processes. Okay, we have our reporting and sustainability headache, and we have our digitalization headache, and let's just, make put some people on it, but to understand that these things should and have to go together, and that this is the only way to actually get them done, and also for them to make sense in an economical and strategic sense as well. Why we chose the word transformation rather than transition for our own branding is because we always felt that this transition is, in a way, transition to what? So I just want to invite you to also look a little bit deeper into this issue, and what we are really needing, and this is, I will go on trying to convince you into this, but what we really feel that we are needing is kind of an idea, a vision of transformation of our society that's holistic and takes multidisciplinary and let's say, a holistic approach. What we started with in 2012 already, it was quite evident. In Berlin, everyone was coming, a lot of new startups were coming, that sustainability is not about just talking, that there is innovation to be done, that we can actually make better products, we can make better, and until twin transition came, and until we realized, okay, that there is a need, definitely need for having good concepts that we can communicate to companies. Actually, what we were using is the word innovation as a driver of sustainability. And we still believe that innovation is extremely important, but what turned out in our practical work is that actually we have already a lot of products, we have a lot of concepts that are ready and that are out there, but we are not using them. Why we are not using them is because we are unable to activate these innovations. Why we are not able to activate these innovations is because we don't have a social capacity, we don't have people, we don't have money. Actually, we do have money, but we have to steer the financial flows in this direction. And this will be, I won't go into these details again here, but basically everything changed with the Green Deal. Most of budget of EU, or at least I think 40%, don't hold me for this, it goes towards the green and sustainable and Green Deal, basically, which is, again, mostly about the decarbonization. And that changed everything. Our work changed everything. Suddenly bankers started talking to us, suddenly financial world started talking to us, because what happened is that new regulation came out. What this new regulation means is that when we want to get people's attention, I will just tell you what we tell them. Every company over 250 employees will have to report, and not report on very basic things, but they will have to report on their core business. And not only they will have to report as a part of a compliance, every company will have to actually have an action plan how they're going to improve the their sustainability performance or sustainability related performance. And yeah, then things start, then people start listening to us. I won't go now into details, but there is a lot of these words like CSRD, ESRS, EU taxonomy, and maybe it's good for you to just listen right now, if you didn't listen too much. It's like these three words, it's very easy to understand it, actually, what it is, what is what. So CSRD is basically the directive. So this is a directive that actually gives out the rules. But directive is not enough unless we have actually some standards. How do we report? I hope you all know this. I just want to repeat it. So ESRS are basically the standards, and they're really, really well done. They're done by the EFRAG in EU, and like with a lot of working groups that are really looking deeply into each single industry and looking what is for them really a crucial sustainability metrics. I won't go now even in more depth, but what is of course always in EU, we are looking for not only green, but also resilient, but also industrial competitive. So what is like kind of innovation of this regulation is that we are, when reporting or making action plans, we are not only looking at the sustainability related impact of companies to their environment, to outside, but actually we are looking also at the risks and opportunities that those regulations or changes can actually bring into the companies themselves. So we always, the regulation itself says, yeah, you have to care for the environment, but you also have to care for your core business and actually look into the metrics that can influence it. And then, but we can go into this in some other time. Then another big topic that now confuses everyone, what is the EU taxonomy? And basically, EU taxonomy is, simply said, really kind of a dictionary, a list of activities, of economic activities that are deemed positive, aligned to taxonomy. And once you put your economic activities aligned to, so for example, I'll just give you an example of a construction industry. So if you build a building in a certain way, it's seen as taxonomy aligned. What it means that you are having an access to another flows of capital. They have basically more subsidies, more possibilities to build in that way. So it's like kind of the way how all of these things, that's why it's also called sustainable finance regulation. And me not coming from finance and a lot of my colleagues, we were a bit worried, like, what is this now? But in a way, the idea is here, of course, we can all report, but it's not about reading these reports. It's about having these reports, having this data actually steer the financial flows in the right direction. And this is how we get, in opinion of our opinion and also opinion of you right now, how we get the green transition really done. And then, of course, because we are a private university and private institution, we are looking also into, how to actually fill in the gaps. And what we realize where the gaps are. So we have a regulation, we have many, many companies that have to report, and we have in between, we need a lot of digital tools, we need a lot of people that know what they're doing, and it's very, very difficult. Imagine entire financial reporting that has been done for decades and thousands of years now is extended to another level of KPIs. So when you are giving someone a credit, any euro you spend in Europe, you have to report not only on a financial returns and financial aspects, financial risk, but also an environmental and ESG risks, another keyword, ESG, but I guess this I don't have to explain. So what we realize, okay, there is a lot of our, let's say, networks started going into this direction, looking to build digital tools, looking to build digital processes for this reporting. But of course, as our core business is still education, what we realize is, of course, but people are missing. There is no people to work on it. There is no people that can actually understand this regulation and also understand data. So this, why we are speaking about this, because for us, this is a par excellence, in a way, example of how digital and green come together. When we say companies, just again to show you the scope of a challenge and opportunity these regulations present. Companies are not just companies we can imagine. Companies are also big corporates, smaller, 250 mid-size companies, any foreign companies that trades with EU and has a specific turnover is also having to report on this. And what was for us really important and interesting is also the hidden champions. And these are municipalities. So every city, if you have a kind of a company that is dealing with heating, or company that, like, even those companies will have to report, make their action plans. And what we realize, like, biggest like where the energy really goes, it's in heat, of course. And these companies will maybe even reach it. But what we see is that municipalities, local governments, they have even less capacity to deal with these issues. And they are the ones running those heating grids that actually have to plan, finance, and communicate also to their citizens the energy transition and green transition. So we also, I'm glad to say, we also won bigger funding dealing with the repower heat, actually repower as a EU policy and in combination with heat. And what we are trying to do there is actually realizing that even if you have all the plans, even if you have a finance, what is the biggest problem now, as we know in Europe, is talent. Who is going to plan this? Who is going to install it? So we are looking into kind of mapping, what kind of digital and green skills are needed for 21st century. And this is also our answer when people ask us what we do with all this AI and people will lose jobs. We always try to say, there is enough jobs. You know, like if you put this green transition in its proper way, first by activating finance, actually having an implementable policy that actually can work, and then putting people to work on that, we will have basically a system that functions. Just now a little bit of self-promotion. So what we've done as our next step, so as I told you before, we've been teaching a master program that was like kind of a general view on sustainability, and we realized, okay, that's not what we want to do anymore. And now we made a new, shorter upskilling program of 6 to 8 months, or if you really want to take your time, up to a year, where we are thinking that we are able to upskill social scientists or students with different domain knowledge into data scientists that also understand basics of specific ESG related data. And for us, the target group is, of course, Europeans, and anyone that is like now left redundant, maybe on some level through their education that was made according to the standards of 20th century, and to kind of push them towards 21st century in a good and lean way. And why it's not called ESG data science, it's called responsible data science, because we also see that one of the biggest challenges is, of course, acceptance and also responsible. It's always the same example I give. It's not about self-driving cars. It's not about them not being able to self-drive. It's about acceptance. Are we ready and able to actually put them on the streets? So technology is there, money is there. Basically, it's about society as we see now, and it's becoming an agenda. So this I sneaked in as a last slide. That's why we kind of unofficially inaugurated something that's called triple transformation, where we want to put in actually the social aspect, cultural, behavior aspect, because okay, we have green, we have digital, but where are the people? Because people are the ones that have to implement it, people are the ones that have to learn, and people are the ones that have to not feel as a victim of change. And this is like an ongoing discussion also, that at the end, we are going to all maybe make money on this transition, but where are the people that are losers of this or are seeing themselves? And that will be the biggest, in a way, challenge. And that will be also the S of ESG. So what of course, Europe did look into this in terms of just transition, but we do think it has to be more deep than that. Actually, we just got the funding, pretty good funding on sustainable well-being, which is like maybe when you talk about sustainable finance, a bit sounding as a soft issue. That's why I said I had to sneak in this here. But anyway, what we are seeing, it really starts with people themselves. And if we are not able to kind of make personal change, have us live healthy, eat good food, feel not stressed, listen to each other, we are not going to reach any of these things. All the data will not work out because we will just have a rebellion or right thing coming up to the government or whatever. So I just want to conclude that that's direction that is less looked at, less profitable, but really, really important. So that's something we are also open to talk about and build upon. Yeah, and again, just to conclude, we are a very special institution dealing with we are not like we are dealing with transfer. So yeah, feel free to connect to us and see what maybe from your very basic academic view, how we can actually put it into the practice in a specific company or a specific startup innovation. That's in a way where we can accelerate change. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Boris. And for everyone, please note down your questions to Boris for the Q&A session later. And next up is Anastasia Panori from the MobiTwin project.
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
Just share my screen. So hi everyone, my name is Anastasia Panori. I am an assistant professor at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, and I am also the scientific coordinator of the MobiTwin project. So starting from where Boris' presentation ended, what we are trying to do in this Horizon Europe project is to see how the twin transition impacts individuals and how it affects the mobility pattern, the spatial mobility patterns, not at the metropolitan level, but between regions, and how this affects regional development in general. So just to let you know some facts about the project, it's a Horizon Europe project. It has 36 months, 3 years, 3 million total budget, and we are 9 partners from 8 countries. And we're going to have 5 case study analysis to apply our methodology. In order to understand how the twin transition affects in a dynamic way regional development, we thought that it is very important to shed light and make a thorough investigation on the changing mobility patterns it triggers. So the main focus of the project, of the MobiTwin project, is to analyze the factors shaping human mobility behavior and to see how the twin transition influences these factors and how it also, by changing these behavioral aspects, it affects regional attractiveness at the second step. So given that we argue that twin transition affects human mobility behavior and then therefore affects regional attractiveness, we want to examine these involving equilibria that start building among spatial mobility forms, different types of mobilities, and to see how these different types of mobility affect EU regions and how we can formulate policies in order to mitigate any demographic, social, and welfare or labor market impacts that they might have on regions. As I said before, our consortium consists of 8 partners. As you can see, it's widespread. We tried to cover as many countries as we can throughout Europe. And we are 6 universities, Aristotle University, University of Barcelona, Groningen, University of Helsinki, RDI from Athens, and Politecnico di Milano. And we of course have our coordinators, which is White Research, it's based in Brussels, and we also have Excelligence for the dissemination and communication activities, and we have the European Science Foundation, ESF, as a research institute for making all the stakeholder engagements that are needed during the project lifetime. Some key objectives that we are trying to investigate throughout the project is, first, as I said before, to understand the patterns, the drivers, and the forms of spatial mobility during the twin transition, how twin transition affects these drivers, and not only for mobility, but also for immobility, why someone just wants to stay in a place which is green and digital, or why does he want to move back or go to a different place which is more green and digital than the one that he's already living. Based on that, based on these changing patterns, we want to redefine regional attractiveness during the twin transition era and see whether factors related to the green and the digital transition play a key role on making regions more attractive to people who want to reside. And based on that, we're going to develop some typologies of the regions to see how whether there are any regional groups that have different patterns of attractiveness based on the twin transition. And of course, after that we have this regional perspective and individual perspective, we're going to analyze in more dynamic way the effects of these changing spatial mobility patterns using energy-based modeling and microsimulation. And of course, all this information will be used as an input to initiate an open policy discussion and engage stakeholders to also share with them our findings, and also they can get back to us with some more additional insights or some more specific aspects related to the twin transition based on their regional experiences. Regarding the concept, in order to better show you how the methodology that we are going to use and at which phase we are now, and how we're going to develop all these initial concepts. As we said before, the twin transition consists of two different pillars. We have the green and the digital transition. Of course, this twin transition offers a new developmental paradigm for Europe. So given that it offers this new developmental approach, we have to considering while we're processing any regional analysis and policy perspectives. So having this in mind, and as a starting point for our analysis, we want to see how this twin transition affects spatial mobility. And when we're talking about spatial mobility, we have in mind that we have two different levels. First of all, we have the individual levels. So how this twin transition affects and potentially changes individual behavior. And at the second level, how these twin transition aspects make regions more or less attractive based on their existing regimes. The starting point of the project is in work package 1, of course. We are finalizing this work package, so we try to explore the interplay between the spatial mobility and twin transition aspects, how the green and digital aspects affect location choices of people. And in order to do that, we already performed a literature review, a thorough literature review on the factors affecting human mobility, and also we performed a large-scale survey, including specific questions referring to twin transition aspects and how these aspects affect individual choices. So after that, now at this point, we're at the point where we use all the data, primary data and secondary data from Eurostat and EU-SILC and LFS in order to identify drivers and barriers forming these new types of spatial mobility. We also have digital nomads, for example, which was not possible to do that some years ago. So at this point, we're finalizing this analysis. At the same time, what we have also tried to do is to start to define what we call this new regional attractiveness index based on the twin transition. We have already seen what kind of typologies exist at the European level, at the regional level, of course, and we wanted to see how aspects related to the twin transition, green vulnerability, for example, or digital infrastructure can be included in this typology-related perspective of European regions. And we are at the point when we're starting to develop the dimensions and the factors, the variables that we're going to use for developing this new regional attractiveness index. So based on that, after developing this index, we will use it as a baseline in order to see how we can include it in developing a dynamic spatial microsimulation and agent-based models in order to see how different people and individual behaviors interact within different regional typologies, always having in mind twin transition aspects in its case, and see how we can forecast population changes based on spatial mobility in 15 or 20 years from now. So we want to see how European regions change in terms of, how do I say it, demographic structure, and see what these demographic changes might, how might these demographic changes affect the developmental perspectives of these regions. And of course, we'll have a specific focus on left behind regions, because what we're arguing in this project is that there might be hidden opportunities for left behind regions if they invest more in promoting their twin transition digital infrastructure and their green potential. There might be many hidden opportunities for them to attract remote workers mostly, and to reverse any downward spiral that might be in terms of developmental perspectives. So in terms of policy, the impact assessment and the policy analysis, it will be focused mostly on reviewing existing EU policies and risk mitigation measures that have been taken during, of course, the pandemic and the Brexit period, and see whether these affect mobility patterns, and of course start a new dialogue, policy discussion about future spatial mobility scenarios, co-designed by quadruple helix stakeholders, of course, and assess the impact of spatial mobility changes at European regions based on this twin transition. Okay, of course, we have some horizontal activities. We think that it's very important to have to use the RRI principles throughout the whole project. So everything we are going to do in terms of policy design and scenario development will be co-designed with quadruple helix stakeholders in order to achieve and maximize the potential impacts and the outcomes of this project. So just to sum up, the expected impact of this project is to better understand the demographic, economic, social, and cultural effects of mobility in European countries from a sending and receiving side within the framework of the twin transition always, to envisage conditions that counter brain drain and labor exploitation, and see how the twin transition can work as an attractiveness factor of regions that might have been left behind. And finally, use all this information as inputs to co-design policies, and not only revise existing policies, but also think of new policy instruments that could be used from regions in order to promote rural development, sustainability, and of course to address regional inequalities. Some more exploitable results from the project is, of course, the analysis findings that we're going to have from the analysis, specific drivers and patterns of spatial mobility. We will also have an open data set at the end of the project that relates to spatial mobility and the twin transition. Of course, the regional attractiveness index and the typologies resulting from this index will be available to everyone. As also the agent-based model and the dynamic microsimulation that we are going to develop throughout the projects. And in terms, of course, for policy design and policy recommendations that will be openly discussed with policy officers and regional officers and quadruple health stakeholders, of course, and scientific publications will be available to everyone. Our case studies, where we're going to focus a little bit more for the scenario development and for applying the agent-based models and probably design specific policy recommendations, include 5 different areas, regions. We have Central Macedonia, Groningen, Lombardy, Castilla-La Mancha, and North and East Finland. Each of these cases indicate different dynamic in terms of spatial mobility. Some of them, for example, Lombardy, COVID-19 had an extensive impact, but it is also very high, it's highly urbanized region, and it's a very upcoming region. It has been always, of course, and still very upcoming region. On the other hand, we have Castilla-La Mancha, which is not so, it's more rural and has very rural metropolitan transition, which is very close to Madrid. And we have Northeast Finland, which is a very different kind of region in terms of spatial mobility. We have second homes there. So everything here, every single case study indicates some specificities in terms of spatial mobility, and we want to see how these specificities relate to the twin transition and how they can be affected either positively or negatively, of course, due to twin transition aspects, and of course help these regions to see how they can exploit any benefits rising from becoming more green or more digital. You can reach out to us, of course, for the project consortium. We have social media. Of course, you can reach out to me. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, or any more details about the project, happy to share with you. Thank you very much. I hope I was in time.
Yes, thank you, Anastasia. And you were on time. So also to all of you in the audience, please note down your questions for Anastasia for the Q&A session soon. But in the meantime, let's leave the floor to Saad.
Thank you, Dag Håkon. I'll just share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Saad Ahmed. I'm a PhD candidate at the Department of Industrial Economics and Technology Management at Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And my project is a little bit more specific. It's the title is Second Life of Electric Vehicle Lithium-ion Batteries in Norway and EU from a Sustainable Business Model Perspective. And it is a sub-part of a bigger sustainability research project at NTNU called HOLIB, which is focused on developing a holistic ecosystem for sustainable repurposing and or recycling of lithium-ion batteries in Norway and EU. And we have different work packages and different projects within this big project where we are focusing on recycling, development of green solvents, and also on soft sides like designing for sustainability, user acceptance of repurposed lithium-ion batteries, etc. So our work packages are divided into 3 parts, where we have work package 1, where we focus on design intervention and also sustainable value creation. And work package 2, where we focus more on recycling and technical side, and work package 3, which is basically an integration of all these aspects. So a little bit of introduction. So an electric vehicle is basically composed of an electric vehicle lithium-ion battery pack, which is in turn composed of thousands of individual cells, which contains different materials and also critical materials like lithium, nickel, cobalt, etc. And then they're connected together in modules to create a battery pack. So in recent years, we have seen that there has been a real exponential rise in the sale of electric vehicles globally, but also especially in EU. And when it comes to Norway, we have been really at the forefront of this expansion, where 8 out of 10 new cars sold were EVs in the year 2023. So we have seen that there has been a real exponential rise in the number of cars that we see on the roads that are electric vehicles these days. But that also means that as the number of cars are increasing, the number of lithium-ion batteries are also increasing in the market. And the problem with lithium-ion batteries is that once they reach around 70 to 80% of their capacity, they are usually taken out of the electric vehicle because they do not necessarily fulfill the range or the capacity and the power in the car. So ideally, it is taken out of the vehicles. So visually, the graph shows how the battery life cycle progresses. So from the first life, when it is being used in the car, it basically reaches 80% of the capacity, and then it is taken out of the car. And then we have this second life of the battery in which the battery is used in another application other than the car, for example, or it can be reused in another car which has different expectations when it comes to range and power. And then you reach knee point where the battery degradation is really sudden and it drops down really quickly. And this is also a part where there is some sort of safety hazards involved, like fires, explosions, which can occur at once you start if you use the battery beyond this knee point. But the problem here again is that you don't necessarily know when this knee point is reached. So there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the second life of the battery and when does this knee point reaches, depending on the cycle numbers and discharge and charge cycles. So this creates a lot of problems because we have an estimated 140 million global EV stock by 2030, and then there's millions of spent EV libs reaching 70 to 80% of capacity beyond that 10-year mark after 2030. And then we also have these unsustainable, inefficient recycling processes for now, which uses a lot of energy and also uses a lot of labor-intensive processes, etc. So that means that all of these batteries, once they come into the market, recycling alone would not be able to manage it in some way. And then we also have the problem of depleting critical resources. So the more we produce the batteries, the more there's a problem of resources being depleted. So what we essentially need is, instead of going straight to recycling of the first end use, we need a sustainable circular model in which we focus on other steps before the recycling to prolong the battery life, where we can do repurposing, remanufacturing, and reusing. Reusing is basically, if the state of health is good enough, you can reuse the battery in the same application again. While repurposing, which is the focus of my research, is when you reuse the battery by tweaking some elements of the battery pack, like changing some modules, changing the battery management system, for example, and then repurposing it in another application. Usually it's energy storage systems that do not really require the range problem, etc. And to operationalize it, you basically need certain elements of the business model working together, like sustainable value creation, in which the firms or the value chain itself is able to provide a value proposition that is sustainable enough for the customers, and the sustainable value delivery, in which the way this value proposition is provided to the customers is sustainable in a way. And then the sustainable value capture point, in which the companies or the firms that are generating the revenue and profits should be sustainable enough to carry this process on. So the battery repurposing process is complex because it involves a lot of steps, which are in many cases very manual labor intensive. So you have to disassemble the battery, check the state of health of the battery, of each cell and of each module, and then reassemble it in different ways. And then it also depends on a lot of on how the battery chemistry is working. Like we have different chemistries with NMC and lithium, nickel, cobalt batteries, or LFP, lithium phosphate batteries. So there's different chemistries within the battery, and then the data from the battery management system is also very important here. And there's a lot of challenges when it comes to the data processes that goes on. For example, the original manufacturers of the batteries do not necessarily share the data with battery repurposers. So there's a lot of conflicts between the value chain as well. And then these repurposed batteries, once they've gone through the repurposing process, can be used in different contexts. Like, for example, in household contexts, where these batteries can be used as energy storage systems for peak shaving, where you can use the battery once the prices of the electricity is too high, or you can use it together with photovoltaic cells, PV cells, solar panels, etc. Or they could also be used in industrial contexts, where these batteries could be used as energy storage systems in big factories or industrial plants. Or also, in some cases, they can also be used in construction sites, for example. And we have other business cases as well in which these batteries are being used for creating portable battery packs. For example, we have this Kenwood portable battery pack, or we have these Lego stack type batteries created by the German startup called Batteries. And then we have like big container type battery energy storage systems, where multiple modules, multiple battery packs are connected together to store a huge amount of energy. So how I do it is basically I'm mapping the ecosystem, where we are trying to find out what kind of stakeholders are present within the Norwegian and EU ecosystem, what kind of business models they have, how these business models are connected together. Excuse me. And then we are also doing forecasting, in which we are trying to find out what kind of sustainable business models and value chain structures would be present in the future moving forward. And then also how we can develop, in collaboration with industry and other partners, new business models that could integrate sustainability aspects more better, and also the data aspects, which has been in somewhat way being proceeded further by the EU Battery Passport Initiative, in which the batteries would have this passport kind of, and the data from the battery health would be shared by all the stakeholders. But so we are also focusing on how that could be used to develop business models that are more sustainable. I do this by literature review, qualitative surveys, industrial visits, questionnaires, interviews, and also ecosystem mapping, which provides a more holistic picture of the value chain and its influences. We have some examples of business models, like for example, this 4R business model from Nissan, in which they basically get these end-of-life batteries from the customers, and then they, according to the state of health of the batteries, they either reuse it or refabricate it and then resell it. This particular business model is basically very confined to the OEM perspective, the original manufacturer perspective, but of course there are other elements going on here as well. For example, once they resell the batteries, then there are other stakeholders connected to that part of the business model. So there are multiple business models working together, either positively, negatively, or symbiotically. So we saw this model being operationalized when we visited the 4R Energy company in Japan, along with our colleagues from University of Braunschweig and University of Tokyo. So we saw how they were getting the batteries, how they were repurposing the batteries, and then also how they were creating these other products to be sold in the market. One another example of a business model, which is quite simple, working in France, is this German startup called Batteries is collaborating with Mobilize, which is kind of like a refactory of Renault cars. So what they do is they source these batteries, these end-of-life batteries from Mobilize, and then they repurpose it together to kind of like build a repurposed battery packs that are Lego type. And then once these battery packs have been created, you can use them in different conditions, like for camping, for construction sites. So according to the battery needs that you have. Another business model that is quite simple enough is once the battery reaches its end of life, the original manufacturer of the battery takes over these batteries from the customers and then sells it directly to the repurposer. So in this way, both the circular strategy is basically that you send out the batteries, end-of-life batteries, to the repurpose, and then they sell it forward to the customers. Or another business model is in which the OEM creates the battery repurposing facilities themselves. So even though this creates like a circular loop in which the OEM is getting the battery back, they are repurposing the batteries themselves and selling it forward, it kind of has adverse social aspects in which you basically cut off the battery supply to the repurposer. So even though this is might be better environmentally and economically for the OEM, it creates adversities on a social level for battery repurposer, and also then it affects the value chain as a whole. So my research now is more about understanding how these sustainable business model interactions take place. What kind of interactions are these? Are these positive? Which stakeholder is affecting positively or negatively another stakeholder within the second life value chain? And then understanding how these factors influence those interactions. And then also how the ecosystem actors then affect the value chain structures and stakeholders within the value chain itself. And then moving forward, I also want to see how can these interactions create business model innovations within the value chain. And then also how can these business models then change the value chain structures that are present within this whole ecosystem of the batteries. Yeah. Thank you. So I hope I was on time.
Thank you, Saad, for a nice presentation. Also, for Saad, please note down your questions to have for later. But we're now up for our last speaker for today, which is Bart Brink from Building Smart. So please, Bart.
Yes, let me take over and get it up and running. Here you go. I hope you can see it.
Yes.
So then I will go with my the final presentation, which zooms out a little bit again from the previous one, I would say, but also gives us additional perspective, hopefully, to the previous presentations, where I try to bring a little bit together my work in the twin transition in the built environment to the goals of the ERA Fabric project you are all working on or contributing to. And I took I take a specific perspective, which is the built environment and the role the twin transition plays there, and how we are doing that in the Netherlands as a kind of living lab environment for how it could work and might work across. Briefly on myself, which is not the most important part, but I think I have been working on this twin transition even before it was quoted that way, which I really like the word. How do you bring the decarbonization challenge, the sustainability challenge, and technology closer together, digital technology? And I've done that within companies, but lately more on sector level in the Netherlands, but also internationally. Internationally for Building Smart, amongst others, and nationally leading an innovation program for renovating the existing built environment. But more on that in a minute. And I did publish quite a lot about this topic because I think, especially in this built environment, we need to bring these two transitions much closer together for various reasons, which I will elaborate. So if you zoom out first, or if you look at the national level, of the Netherlands, we see that the twin transition is kind of becoming the central thing in how we look at our innovation policy. On the right-hand side, you see our national multi-year research program, research and innovation program we have in the Netherlands, where we align between public and private partners about where are we going to focus our investments, our 3% of our BBP on for the next 3 to 4 years. And a characteristic of that knowledge and innovation agenda is that it's really mission driven. So we really focus on big challenges in society and try to align research companies, NGOs, but also the governments to those challenges. On the other hand, earlier this year, for the first time, we launched our technology strategy, where we really made choices as a country, which are the, out of the all potential technologies, what are the 10 most critical for us as a country, where we really want to focus on, and where we really do believe we can make a difference on, as a country, but also in a European context compared to the bigger play out there. And you see these two, this national innovation, research innovation agenda and the technology strategy are increasingly linked, quoting the twin transition as term. So it's becoming really rooted in how we try to do things, because we do believe that the challenges are large in society, decarbonization, climate resilience on one hand, but also that technology provides a great opportunity to do so. And if you bring this to the built environment, this also becomes more and more clear. And with the decarbonization challenges are really large, 40% of emissions go to the built environment today, which is significant and large. But on the other hand, we are in the bottom end of the charts if it goes about adoption of technology and digitalization for all kind of reasons, how the sector is structured, the low digital maturity, etc. So, but we have to do something. And I think it's important to share some pictures and numbers about this challenge in the built environment on the national level, which account of about 4 to 8%, depends about how you would count of the European challenge. So just multiply them by 15 and you know the European numbers, let's put it that way. And in the Netherlands, for example, we have to, and it is key in our new government's policies, we have to build new houses, 100,000 per annum, which is really challenging in a country which is so densely populated already as the Netherlands. We have to decarbonize 8 million houses, 1 million buildings, 80,000 bridges, which are large numbers, and we don't have enough capacity, and we don't make enough speed yet. And that is a challenge, because if we don't accelerate by factor 2 to 3, we not only don't make the goals we put down in place at European and national level for circular economy, for decarbonization on one hand, but also other sectors in our economy are at risk. Right? At the moment, bridges start collapsing because we are not in time by replacing them or strengthening them. Yet it has a huge impact on the wider economy. It doesn't help logistics. It doesn't help industry. The same for houses. If we are able to deal with foundation issues we have in certain parts of the Netherlands in time, it will have a huge social impact. So we have a challenge as a sector, but we also have a challenge as society that this sector is underperforming. Let's put it this way. And as in many sectors, and I think that's also increasingly in the news European-wide, with the Draghi report amongst others, we have this productivity gap. We have a big gap between what we should do and what we could do and have been doing, and especially the construction sector is lagging. It has not been growing for the last 30 years. And for example, in the United States, it's declining even. So we're not becoming more productive, becoming less productive, which given these numbers is a big challenge. Luckily, there's an opportunity. Let's call it the twin transition, how I would do that. But that was one of the reasons why for the Netherlands, we created this TKI Bouw en Techniek, which is a central place at national level where we really want to bring together the quadruple helix of knowledge institutes, government, companies, and NGOs to work on these challenges. And we are the place to lead this collaboration on these challenges in large innovation programs. I will show a couple of them later on. Our mission is focused on 3 topics. One is more about circularity. How do we make our 2030, 2050 targets towards a circular built economy, a construction economy? It's about climate adaptation, which is increasingly becoming more and more prominent and on the radar, where we need to collectively learn and develop strategies on regional level, but also building and infrastructure level. And it's all about how do we deal with our renovations, our lifetime extensions, what we already have. The big numbers showed earlier, and that's the mission I'm leading. And how we work in this national level is that's really an open innovation program. And we really focus on not just making sure that innovations are being developed, but especially how we scale them, how do you bring them to a larger scale at market. And we also notice that our government is taking a much more proactive role there. And it's not just a market to solve that, but it's a public-private challenge we need to do together. And our programs focus on that collaboration. And one way to do so is by directing all kind of innovation subsidies on national, regional, and European level, like Horizon, of course. But it's also about creating those programs around specific challenges and bring all the stakeholders together around the table and make sure we're going to collaborate collectively on those challenges, often partly funded by government, partly funded by companies. And of course, for this productivity growth, the twin transition is at the heart. If we're not going to integrate the potential scalable technologies like digitization or industrialization, so literally building factories where we build new houses at much larger scale, we're not going to make our numbers we need to make for all reasons said before. If you look at my renovation challenge, to zoom a little bit in, and let's hopefully make a little bit clear how the twin transition comes in. You see the challenge is all about durability. How do we extend the lifetime of existing assets? How do we make them more sustainable, decarbonize them, but also how to adapt them to new usage? For example, electrical vehicles will change the way we use roads. Elderly, the average age of people growing up in parts of Europe will have an impact on our housing and our care system. And how do we make sure people can live longer at their own house before they go out for their last phase into an elderly home? So how can we adapt houses on a large scale? And you come to these questions where digital and data can really help us. It's all about insight. What do we have and what can we do with it? It's all about partly about technical measures, how we strengthen a bridge at scale. How do we improve the foundation of a building at scale, which is not so easy. Right? It's really fragmented and project-related solutions to date. How do we do this much more scalable? How do we create clusters of portfolios where we're going to work on instead of project by project, which is an intrinsic way of organizing the built environment? How do we renovate our bridges, for example, at scale? And how do we really make sure what we developed is becomes externalized, being adopted, and that policy, partly from government, that's why government is not just the funder, but also a clear partner in crime, let's put it that way, to make sure that regulation and policies really supported the upscaling of what we develop. And you see, to make this challenge and renovation challenge, yes, we need to look at various kinds of innovations. Some are much more technical, like new materials. Some are in procurement. How do we tender for not one bridge, but 100? What does that mean? And what does it take? And is it allowed? And how can we apply the rules in the right way? But also about technology, robotization, but also digital twins and AI come really into play. And my goal in my program is really to, around these specific challenges, make sure that this comes together. For example, let's take 2 programs to share a little bit how that works in practice. This is the largest innovation program in the Netherlands for the built environment we ever had. In all honesty, if you see the figures, you know why. And that is a program with a lot of partners, with a lot of funding from a national investment fund in innovation, which I think really accelerated the uptake of these kind of broader collaborations on these challenges. Really looking at the wider built environment and really look into how do we significantly come to this innovation that reduce our footprint, reduce the impact of buildings, houses, and infrastructure. But also, how do we really come to a run at rate for circular economy examples like houses? So this is really a large program where for buildings, infrastructure, we're gonna in that quadruple helix. So companies, knowledge institutes, and government are collaboratively innovating on these challenges. And you see a little bit what they do. So we develop a national asset health center for this program, so we can monitor our bridges much more better, not only from the asset perspective, so the bridge itself, but also in relation to traffic movement. And so how can we better overlay these 2 separate fields today, so we make better decisions where we intervene in infrastructure to renovate or upgrade and make sure that the impact on society is limited. But also the lifetime extension, can we develop measures for infrastructure? And you see the same for buildings. And I think these programs with the scale give us a great opportunity to experiment and learn what technology can help on these challenges we face, and how we can really get to digital twins used at scale at national level instead of on the project only. I think this is a great opportunity and a way of how we reorganize, how we innovate in the built environment, because till date, it was always done in projects, incremental innovation in projects. That was the way our sector had been innovating. And we take IBAU Techniek, these missions and these programs, we take a step forward. Just to round off, maybe 2 other examples to share. A new program I'm starting now is how can artificial intelligence help for this renovation challenge? That seems to make sense. But if you look across in the built environment sector, adoption of AI is limited to low. All kind of reasons, digital mindset is low, data quality is poor, it's scattered and fragmented. So I really took for me the opportunity to, can I, as a national level, create a program where we, again, in the collaboration, we're going to work on accelerating the adoption of AI for this renovation challenge. Can we create a sandbox where we can experiment between asset owners and market? Can we collectively share, much better share good examples that are there, which are often not coming beyond the border of an organization? Can we collectively work on procurement policies, for example, for market parties, instead of that a national road authority does it different than the national rail authority, then it different than an asset owner or a housing corporation. And so I think there is a need and a will at our national level to also collectively start working on opportunities like artificial intelligence applied for innovation. Another one is on the bottom part is another program we have been working on is how can we accelerate the renovation of houses and public real estate. So can we really get programs in place that we move beyond the project by project to a more programmatic approach where we create volumes of projects we're going to collaboratively work on. And I think in that way, by making sure we get also the right skills and expertise from the digital side to the table, there's a great opportunity to bring that twin transition, which sounds nice, really to life, not on a project level, on a smart building level, but on a sector and industry level. And in that way, make our built environment in the Netherlands resilient and ready for the future. And also the connected economies to the built independent on this environment as well. Thank you.
And thank you, Bart, for your interesting presentation. We're now for the Q&A round. We have about 10 minutes, so please use the chat as well for posting questions if you don't like to just speak out and ask them. And while all of you are preparing your questions, I can start with a first question to all the speakers. So you have already touched upon it, and I think we'll all agree that there's a lot of potential in the twin transition. But what would you see as, from your perspective, as the main challenge to the twin transition? Should we start with Anastasia?
Yes, sure. Ladies first. So given, from my point of view, at least from our experience from the Model Between project, I think that we're still not, even though from technical perspective, we have some specific challenges that need to be addressed, and some of them we know. From a policy perspective, not a policy from the way that how we're going to combine the green and digital technologies or things like that. But I think the main challenge is to see how all these changes will affect the way people consider and think about the opportunities that arise at the regional level, at least. For example, even though new types of industries will rise, for example, as Saad said, the repair process of the batteries and things like that. So we were not fully sure where these new types of opportunities will be able to rise. So all this information is there in terms of technical aspects, but I think we are missing at least from our point of analysis, we're missing the geographical footprint impact of the twin transitions, how it will affect regions in terms of developmental perspectives. And we might see regions that are struggling right now, and if these regions perform some, I don't know, critical policy developments in terms of how they're going to benefit from the twin transitions, there might be very, very positive benefits for them. That is from my side.
Yeah, so impact on regions, and also where to look for the opportunities, and which industry and will have opportunities in the future. What about you, boys?
I'll try to be brief with the challenges, but basically what we see is that like tech is there. I really, like, for 10 years, I always wanted to work on tech, and make deep tech solutions. And then we realized, yeah, we have heat pumps since 30 years, that's enough for a lot. And then now a little bit of AI here and there, we will solve it. A lot of energy issues. The problem is, I think, in digital literacy, in decision makers, if you go to a big system, a bank, like, is the decision maker at all understanding what you're speaking about? Like, these are are they able? I mean, we see this from, like, I'm already like so totally digitally fear, but more you get busy, less you know how to do basic stuff, even in your own computer. And imagine if you're a CEO of a bank or whatever, you have this like kind of little sparkles of information, but in a way we need attention and depth to understand, or trust that someone else has to do it, like, so basically we need the people in decision-making positions, either from a bank, from a company, from, like, to actually understand what is data science, how it can steer things, to understand basically how you can, like, and then and also to understand this other point, like, what are the regulations really, and because we are all using big words, and in the end, a lot of people, I see this also in my daily work, don't really understand what comes behind these words, because it's a hard job to understand those, and we need to demystify and to put us on an equal level in order to be able to talk to each other. I think that's the biggest challenge, and I hope these kind of meetings can develop in this direction.
Yeah, great. So more a view on competence and literacy in the digital world.
Yeah, but going with, at the end, competence always sounds a bit like, hands-on. We need, like, kind of, as I don't know, 20 years ago, people couldn't understand what means a website and email, and then those failed. They didn't understand this like transition. And now, in the same way, it's even more difficult. Of course, people can understand what the website is, even if it will, like, but to understand what AI can do and what data can do, it is not as easy as seeing a website or writing an email. So we need to find a different way to talk to each other about these things.
Yeah, exactly. So what about you, Bart?
I would really build upon the previous point Boris made. I think both for digital and sustainable, that getting to a certain mindset on both is really important. And I notice around me, people are often not, it's either or. So they are high on sustainable mindset, but low on digital, or the other way around. And I think especially on the interplay between, there it happens. And I think one of the challenges with that is not just about, it's also about competence and skills and learning things. But one of the challenges we face, it's about, you need to, people who have come with certain capabilities at a place at a certain point in their career now have to learn suddenly these new topics. And instead of that they are the mature leader in the group, they start on the bottom part. And I find it difficult to acknowledge that. So it's kind of, in my own work, I try to relate it to learning a foreign language. You really need to get to 30% of vocabulary and grammar to really express you in a business sense to an audience about a specific topic. And the same is true for digital and sustainable. And I would say, I'm not the only one saying that, but there was research from Harvard Business Review 1.5 years ago. A lot of people don't get to the 30% mark on digital mindset. So they're not able to ask the right questions or assess an answer they get. But they don't dare to say it, which is the other part, the taboo or the which is around it. And I think that's where it starts. And that is not only true for businesses, for the scholars, but also for government and policymakers. So I think the biggest challenge is there that we don't understand this concept really, or dare to say that we understand. So I think as make it explanatory, like Boris explained, I think is key. Otherwise, people will not say, I do understand it, but when you ask them afterwards, did you really understand it? Can you say it in your own words? They struggle with it. So I think there is a lot to be done. And we should not underestimate, as more front runners working on this topic, the fact that a lot of people are left behind, not following us, while we are in a bubble of front runners, kind of.
Yeah, great, interesting, and also daring to acknowledge what you don't know and your need to develop your knowledge. That's important message as well. I see the turn has come to you, Saad, but I see that you also got another question in the chat.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen it. So
Yes, I've seen it.
Answer that one.
Yeah. I can start with the challenge first, I think. So building upon all the things that the other speaker said, it's I think the social challenge in the battery specific case is also kind of really prominent because like for example, if you're creating repurposed batteries and the decision maker is not really entrusted in buying the product and is not really feeling safe in having this repurposed battery in their household, then it doesn't really matter if you're repurposing the battery or not. And then also there's other challenges about data sharing. The companies do not really trust each other to share their data with another stakeholder within the value chain itself, and that creates a lot of problems for the technical aspects, even though they have the technical expertise to do that. So there's a lot of social issues going on within the value chain that kind of hampers the progress of the repurposed batteries in themselves. And then there's also like policy implications, even though all the companies believe that repurposing is the way to go, but the policies still incentivize recycling more. So that also creates a lot of challenges where most of the resources then go into recycling, building the infrastructure for recycling. Coming to the question, which is in the chat. So it's basically about life cycle of the batteries and how a mining process of lithium itself impacts the environment and the groundwater. So my research is more on the repurposing side, like the end of life once the battery's life is done. So I don't really focus on the mining process itself. But there are obviously challenges here because there's not just environmental challenge. The environmental challenge is basically extraction of lithium requires a lot of water, so it depletes the region of water itself. And then we have seen some cases in Congo in which there was water depletion, and then because of lithium extraction, there was scarcity of water for the people living there. So there's some, and also extraction itself creates these hazardous materials like that are very acidic in nature, so it's harmful for the health as well. And then there are also social problems when it comes to it, like for example, exploitation of the labor force, and most of these materials are present in regions where there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of exploitation of workers. So it brings a lot of challenges, even though it's considered to be really sustainable. So
yeah. It's a complex picture with the production, reuse and recycling of these batteries. With respect to time, actually, we're there at 12:31 actually. So we have to round off this webinar already. But I wish to thank all of you who attended, and a special thanks to you speakers. Today we had a lot of new insights and ideas for where to look to and whom to contact. That's great, and also perhaps how to collaborate. So thank you all for attending, and please also stay tuned for the 5 remaining webinars in the Fabric project. Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much for
much.
having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye to everyone.
Bye bye.